Good morning, everyone, and Happy New Year. Can you believe it's already 2023? On behalf of Best Center and the Lawrence Berkeley National Lab, I'd like to welcome you to the 2023 Annual Institute. Our theme this year is Advancing Building Decarbonization. I'm Larry Chang, Director of Best Center, which is an NSF-funded center, resource center devoted to high-performance building operations and technician education. We are based at the California Institute for Energy and Environment at the University of California at Berkeley. Founded in 2012, Best Center is the only National Science Foundation funded center whose mission is to advocate for high-performance building operations and technician education. We partner with industry to help community and technical colleges improve and create cutting-edge educational programs in commercial HVAC, building automation systems, and energy management. Currently, we have approximately 70 colleges in our network. As a Best founding member, I am a registered architect, and I've worked on many residential and commercial projects, and I've also taught architecture at 2- and 4-year colleges. But what working at Best Center has taught me is how important it is to understand how or what buildings do or don't do after the ribbon cutting ceremony, and that technicians are key to maintaining high-performance building operations. Next, I'd like to thank our sponsors, Contemporary Controls and HVAC Excellence. They've been longtime stalwart partners of Best Center. Be sure to attend the roundtable sessions later to learn more about the resources and opportunities they have available. I also want to thank ASHRAE for helping to endorse our event this year. And now I'd like to invite my fellow Best team members to introduce themselves and give an overview of the fascinating sessions which you'll encounter today and the next 2 days. Peter?
Yes, thank you, Larry. And thank you, everyone who is attending today. We really appreciate you being here and look forward to discussing with you these important topics of the day. Our conference has 4 themes this year. What are the policies needed for decarbonization? What are the new and emerging technologies and technical strategies supporting decarbonization? What are the workforce implications for educators and trainers? And finally, we explore some of the instructional tools and curriculum development strategies to support decarbonization in community and technical college classrooms. And then, in addition, we ask the question, why is decarbonization necessary? Some notes about how we've structured the event. We have 2 types of sessions. We have speaker presentations with Q&A in chat rooms through the chat function. And we will be collecting your questions during the session and allowing time for discussion at the end. In addition, we have roundtable interactive discussions, and these are limited to 15 participants, and these occur at the end of the day, each day. And so you'll want to be on time to those sessions in order to ensure that you can get in. I would also note that these sessions will be viewable for a month after the conference ends at the VFAIR's site, at this conference site. So you can go in and view the sessions later if you miss a session or want to review a session. Also, the PowerPoints of the presenters will be available in the auditorium of the site. So you can pull those down for later review. Later on, all of these sessions will be available for viewing at the Best Center YouTube channel. So we do encourage you to go back if you need to look at something. So our 4 major themes are woven throughout each day, although day 1 tends to have a stronger policy focus. Day 2, a greater emphasis on technology, and day 3, a greater focus on workforce and workforce education issues. Our roundtable discussions after sessions offer sessions of interest to both educators and industry professionals on each day. I'd like to highlight a few sessions that will be taking place, and then my colleagues will also highlight some of the sessions as well. Starting with the why question, which some people advocate is one of the most important questions. Why is decarbonization so urgent? And our keynote speaker today, Tim Linton, from the University of Exeter in the UK, is a climate scientist, and he will be addressing that issue. He'll be talking about tipping points, and both negative and positive. So negative tipping points are a little scary. Positive tipping points reflect rapid change in behavior, and addressing decarbonization and climate change is all about changing behavior, both of legacy industries and consumers and end users. And so change is sometimes very difficult when people are set in their ways. Unlike IT startups, starting with a blank sheet, they're going to disrupt the economy. Much of the industry surrounding buildings and building operations and building technologies are legacy industries that have been around for a long time, and they have their ways of doing things. And as consumers, we also have certain expectations and ways of doing things that we're comfortable with. So change can be pretty dramatic. So Tim is going to really review with us the why it's so urgent. He's going to answer the question, is there really a climate crisis? Moving on to our themes, what are the new policies that are supporting decarbonization by aiming to change the behavior of homeowners and building owners alike, and also the infrastructure that supports those industries? Policies tend to be both carrot and stick approaches. For example, the IRA legislation, Inflation Reduction Act, that was passed in the last Congress, offers a wide range of incentives or carrots for installation of heat pumps, for example, by residential homeowners, and other kinds of carrots. These are incentive-based. There are also sticks, sanctions, and these are coming more at the city level with regard to building performance standards and trying to enforce those standards and change the behavior of building owners to conform with higher levels of performance. I would highlight Peter Alsbach's session later this morning, and he'll be discussing how cities are implementing building performance standards and how these standards are impacting buildings and building system design. Utility company policies, and utilities are a legacy industry. They're a monopoly in effect that have been around for 100 years. Their policies also play an important role, especially in the implementation of renewable energy projects. Therese Pepper and Rich Brown later this morning will be talking about how these policies interact with local ordinances, with people's concerns, with technology and economics in the development of a block level microgrid project. And I'll give you a hint. The technology is perhaps the easiest part of the project. Our second major theme, the emerging technologies and energy management strategies. Our day 2 keynote speaker, our own Ann Piette, will provide a broad overview of the transformative technologies and strategies supporting decarbonization of buildings. And what better person to give that overview? We'll have a number of sessions on heat pumps, control strategies, and other new technologies, which my colleagues will highlight in a few minutes. Our third theme, we have several sessions focusing on workforce issues, including our keynote panel on day 3, which Larry will describe later. I will mention 2 other sessions of particular interest. And as we noted earlier, commercial HVAC and facility operations and maintenance are both legacy industries with long histories and well-established practices. In this context, certain aspects of workforce development involves changing well-established behavior patterns. Paul Raftery's session on day 3 will review some rather astonishing findings of a study of hot water heating practices in some 300 commercial buildings across the country. They have had access to BAS data, extensive BAS data, and his reporting will, I'm sure, be fascinating for many of you. Also on day 3, Ted, Robert, and I will discuss progress on the Best Center's high performance building operations certification, which aims to transform the operation of commercial buildings by setting a new standard for the knowledge and skill requirements of building operators and technicians. Our fourth theme, educator toolkits, are concentrated especially in the roundtable discussions and towards the back end of day 3 as well. And I would highlight the session led by Brian Lovell on day 1, providing curriculum guidance for the design of BAS programs. And with that, I'd like to turn it over to Ann Piette to review additional sessions.
Thanks so much, Peter, and good morning, everyone. I want to start by thanking Peter for his continued leadership with the Best Center, and thank Larry and Ted and Robert for providing me this opportunity to collaborate. Lawrence Berkeley National Lab is one of 17 national labs from around the country, and a number of us do work in buildings. And this is a really exciting time for this field, because basically we are trying to accelerate the development of technology and the implementation of that technology to help decarbonize the building sector. And I'll be talking about that tomorrow morning. We've put together a great 3-day program, as Peter just gave you an introduction to. I'm going to highlight a few of the speakers, both today and over the next few days. We're not going to talk about every talk, but I want to emphasize a couple of them. Today, after hearing about climate change, you're going to hear from Nora Esrom, and she's the research advisory board leader and the research advisory leader at the American Council for an Energy Efficient Economy. And ACEEE has been doing work to help promote energy efficiency in the building sector for nearly 4 decades. But what is really interesting is that we're moving away from just energy efficiency to decarbonization. So we're looking at electrification, distributed energy resources. I'll be talking about this tomorrow, how to integrate with solar and photovoltaics. And thinking about grid integration and energy efficiency, electrification, grid integration, and distributed energy resources are key pillars to decarbonization. And what we know is there's a lot of new training needs as we move from sort of an energy efficiency portfolio in buildings research and buildings implementation to what does the workforce need to accelerate the decarbonization activities in the building sector. So Nora's going to be giving you an introduction into workforce needs, but also an overview of some of the federal funding available for the decarbonization agenda. So she'll be walking you through some of the high-level numbers and what kind of programs and funding are available to invest in the building sector. And that's a really important topic. I'm also super excited to be bringing to you Shreyas Jatkar. Shreyas is a senior advisor for good jobs and workforce at the U.S. Department of Energy, and he'll be giving you a high-level introduction into how the Department of Energy and the energy efficiency and renewable energy part of DOE is thinking about how they can facilitate the workforce. And I'm really excited to hear his presentation and hope you can join it, because we also know that the federal government is investing in not only the technologies, but also the workforce. That's a really important opportunity for us today. You're going to hear from Joshua Case about building performance standards. And building performance standards are part of the toolkit that Peter was mentioning, but for the cities. So cities are trying to develop data on commercial buildings and understand how buildings compare to each other and create the benchmarks for incentivizing and requiring that buildings take action. Henry Richardson from WATime will be giving you an overview of a technology that is really exciting. And maybe some of you have heard about this 24/7 clean energy concept. We're moving towards a time where the grid is changing. And when you have more renewables on the grid, you want to use as much of your load and energy as at the time when the grid is the cleanest. And in some parts of the country, that may be when there's a lot of solar or wind. And we're actually exploring the idea of using signals that the building can listen to that represent how clean the grid is. So if you listen to these signals, you can shift your water heating, shift your EV charging, and other things like that to the time of the day when the grid is the cleanest and help reduce the carbon footprint. And also, the blur between buildings and transportation is making it very challenging to look at the meter on the building, but the meter may include vehicles, which is a transportation end use. So there's a lot of changes in the energy sector, and we think those are important elements to bring forward to you when we think about the workforce and where we need to go. You're going to hear from Nora Hart about decarbonization audits and how the federal government is investing in low carbon pilots and moving again from the energy efficiency to a broader decarbonization portfolio. Jessica Granderson is going to introduce you to a variety of technologies about building operations and information technology. So we have the ability to collect data and understand the building performance relative to its history and create actionable information for facility managers to understand faults in their building, energy waste, and to make O&M changes to make sure their control systems are working correctly. Marco Pretoni is going to give you an overview of open source controls to control heat pumps to allow them to also run in a clean grid and integrate with the grid. So you're going to be hearing from him about controls. And it's great that we want to put in a lot of heat pumps for electrification, but we need to control those heat pumps. We need to control them for heat pump water heating, for heat pump space heating. And you're also going to hear from Peter Grant about some of that. And the last one I want to emphasize is there's a roundtable today that Cindy Renier is leading. And that roundtable is about what's happening in schools, for both decarbonization and energy efficiency, as well as indoor air quality. So there's a lot of funding for schools in disadvantaged communities and remote communities around the country. And Cindy's going to be providing an overview of some of that work and providing a roundtable forum to discuss those activities. So I want to thank all the speakers for joining us these 3 days. Thank the LBL speakers. We have a number of folks from Lawrence Berkeley National Lab in the Building Technologies research area, and as all the other speakers who are joining us for this 3-day event. So I'll hand it over, I think, to you, Ted.
Thanks, Marianne. I'm Ted Wilinski. I'm one of the co-PIs for the BEST Center, and my college, Milwaukee Area Technical College, is one of the many colleges that Larry mentioned earlier that are part of the BEST Center network. Today, there's going to be a presentation at 11:15 by somebody I've worked with for the past decade here in Milwaukee, Eric Schombarger. He's going to be talking about the grid, local action, and utility advocacy. So this is in the policy area. Eric's been working in many arenas with the city to try to forward sustainability over the past decade plus. And so it's going to be a pretty interesting presentation talking on the policy end, how you work with your public service commissions, someplace they call them public utility commissions, and how you work locally with other entities such as large corporations, public institutions like colleges, to work with utilities to try to get renewable rates and things like that he's been working on in the past decade here, and really has been pushing forward in the past couple of years to gel or put together a policy for the city as a whole. So we're going to get a lot of good information on that. The other part that Peter had mentioned that the Institute dwells on is the instructional part, the curriculum in that arena. And today, later on in the roundtable, I'll be kind of facilitating a discussion on how do we get decarbonization into our discussions in the classroom, build them into our curriculum. And we're just going to talk about different ideas to accomplish that. That'll be at 1 o'clock. And then on day 2, the other one that I want to highlight is one of my colleagues, another network college, Northeast Wisconsin Technical College, Jennifer Brinker. She's going to be talking about a grant that she's been working on that is targeting trying to get interest built up at the high school level for the building controls area. And she's put together this outreach strategy that involves, you might want to call it trainer, but it's labeled as a BS lab in a box. And this is going out with curriculum to local high schools and providing a really good way for the instructors at high schools to teach this and teach it at a college credit level. So those are ones that I have a strong interest in, and I'm looking forward to a lot of the other ones too, especially the one on that was mentioned earlier about water heating with heat pumps and other strategies. So with that, I'm going to pass it over to Robert Nirenberg.
Good day, everyone. My name is Robert Nirenberg. I'm the newest co-PI here at the BEST Center, and my day job is at Metropolitan Community College as an HVAC and building automation systems instructor. So I come at this very heavily from the technology aspect, and while the policy and the actuality of all of this is very, very interesting, the sessions that really excite me are technology based. So the ones that I'm really particularly excited for are start on day 2, session called Smart Panels and DC Power for Low Power Electrification by Daniel Gerber. I think this one will be a really interesting panel for everyone to see, kind of a throwback almost to the current wars back between Edison and Westinghouse. And if it were re-decided today, I think we might have a little bit different of an outcome because of the ways we've changed the use of electrical power. Directly after that, we have Peter Grant talking about flexible water heating. towards decarbonization and some ideas that might change the way we think about modern electric water heaters, and particularly heat pump water heaters. Lastly, on day 3, Christopher Kohler is going to talk about a little bit more on the workforce side, but also heat pump side, and talk about his experiences with mini split heat pumps and the installation and the basic technology or workforce orientation towards those units. I would also be remiss if I didn't talk, at least mention my own session, which is also on day 3, which is using BAS data to troubleshoot climate control systems. And this, we have so many buildings that already exist with people operating those buildings, and sometimes we run into problems in those buildings. So those have to be addressed. This session is also a bit of a preview for our summer workshop, which is going to be oriented towards specifically troubleshooting the BAS system and using the BAS system. I'm going to pass it back to you, Larry.
Thank you, Robert. Okay, and kind of rounding out the highlights for some of our remaining sessions, my friend Chris Halfnight, who is Senior Director of Research and Policy at Urban Green Council, will also be kind of adding to the dialogue around building performance standards and how those are implemented across various municipalities. His talk is titled Gas Bans and Zero Emission Appliance Standards. And I'd also like to add that Chris is an advisor and a member of our National Visiting Committee for Best Center. And then moving to day 3, I will be moderating a panel discussion titled Industry Trends in the Building Sector and Implications for Workforce Education. We have 3 esteemed gentlemen from various sectors, from, again, commercial property management, the hospitality industry, as well as a manufacturer of controls, all talking about what are the current kind of trends in buildings that they've been seeing, and how that also begins to impact the skills that technicians need to be able to implement and to service those technologies. And you probably garnered by now that heat pumps are the words of the day. And on day 3, we will continue that discussion with Thomasina Filan. She is with DNR International, and she'll be talking about commercial heat pump water heating systems, the water heating solution in building electrification. In our move towards building decarbonization, she posits that sometimes the water heating side of things gets left out of the, well, or at least is kind of not as addressed as much as it could be regarding electrification. So she'll be filling us in on what needs to be done there. And then last but not least, Eugene Silberstein from our friends at ESCO Group will be talking about inverter controlled heat pump systems, and giving you instructors out there some tips about exercises that you can take into the classroom. And then I will also be helping to facilitate a discussion at a roundtable regarding our advanced technological education projects and centers. Some of the people joining that discussion will be Ken Walls, who is the principal investigator for the Create Energy Center, and also some of our colleagues at colleges that have received ATE grants. We encourage you to apply. And on that note, I would encourage you all to visit the expo hall, visit the booths, visit them often. They are chock full of resources which you can save to your personal briefcase and email to yourself. It doesn't get more convenient than that. And I'd also like to finally leave you with a couple of quotes here, hopefully as a source of inspiration for the remainder of the Institute. First, I'd like to share a quote from Lily Tomlin, the kind of famed actress and comedian. She once said, "I always wondered why somebody doesn't do something about that. Then I realized I was somebody." And then finally, from author Karen Lamb, "A year from now, you will wish you had started today." So hopefully we won't